welcome to Hefsel Weekly. In this week's episode, we will present you with some politics-related news, such as how Russia has intensified its attack on Ukraine. We will also discuss SpaceX's disadventurous Starship launch on its test flight, why climate activists are protesting COP29, and this year's Booker Prize winner Samantha Harvey. Stay tuned. After a nearly 2-month hiatus after Donald Trump was elected as US President, Russia has once again launched a deep offensive into Ukraine, sending a reported 96 missiles and drones against civilian infrastructure in the Ukrainian capital. In addition to resuming attacks on Kiev, Moscow has also increased drone strikes across Ukraine by 44%. We expect a significant increase in the number of launches into Ukraine in the next few months, up until January 20th, Ivan Stupak, a former Ukrainian security official, told ABC News. Russian launches are steadily increasing. According to Stupak, there were 818 launches in August, 1,410 in September, and 2,072 in October. Ground attacks were also intensified, particularly in the Kursk border region partially occupied in August of this year by Ukraine. Russia has reportedly concentrated around 50,000 troops in Kursk to take charge in the counter-offensive, and around 10,000 North Korean troops were dispatched to assist Russian allies. After the build-up, the conflicts in Kursk have resulted in high casualties for Russia. 2,000 Russians were killed or wounded on October 12th alone, and Moscow also lost at least 88 armored vehicles in Kursk as counted by a Ukrainian drone operator. Now, it's time for space news. On November 19th, SpaceX launched another Starship rocket, concluding with a failure to catch the booster with giant mechanical arms. The capture was aborted just 4 minutes into the test flight from Texas for unspecified reasons, and the booster hit the water 3 minutes later. SpaceX spokesman didn't specify what went wrong, but said that not all criteria for booster capture were met, so the flight director didn't order the booster to return to the launch site. Meanwhile, the empty spacecraft launched from Texas with Starship on top flew over the Gulf of Mexico, making a near circle around the globe similar to its October test flight. The craft grazed space and targeted the Indian Ocean for a controlled but destructive end to the hour-long show. It was the final test for the world's largest and most powerful rocket, which SpaceX and NASA hope to use to take astronauts to the moon and eventually back to Mars. They kept the same flight path as last time, but changed some steps and the time of day. They chose late afternoon hours to ensure there was enough light to observe the landing as it circled halfway around the world. This was the 6th launch of a fully assembled Starship since 2023. The first 3 exploded. Let's talk about the protests for Climate Summit COP29 hosted in Azerbaijan, Baku. Climate activists are frustrated that, while mass street marches have taken place in host cities in previous years, they have only been able to protest in certain areas of the venue. One of the protests used a giant banner to convey the words "Pay it up" to the world in the dusty, almost empty Baku Olympic Stadium. The protest took weeks of thought and planning, and activists promoted the venue as a larger and more visually striking venue. But with the stands outside the main venue, most attendees at this year's UN climate talks didn't see or hear it. Bianca Castro, a Portuguese climate activist who has attended several COPs in the past, said it was really hard to get her demands out, and recalled years when there were thousands of protesters on the streets and many strikes and demonstrations throughout the event. Another protest that attracted attention took place in Azerbaijan's neighboring country, Tbilisi, Georgia, where famous activist Greta Thunberg also participated. Many activists, including Swedish activist Thunberg, protested the summit at a protest organized by Caucasus feminist anti-war movement, arguing that Azerbaijan doesn't deserve to host the climate talks due to its oppressive policies. Azerbaijan has pledged to invest more in clean energy projects, but climate activists and experts say this is simply to export more oil and gas. That concludes this week's headlines. From political tensions to space missions, we covered a wide range of interesting topics. It was Hefsel Weekly. Thank you for listening.